can behold objects as they really are. That it's only in the context of light that reality can be known, so that you have knowledge. Everything else are simply dim approximations, just opinions that don't really matter. This is Plato's philosophy. Now, why is that significant to Christianity? Well, in the 2nd century, the Christian apologist Justin Martyr talked about that not only do we find truth in the sources that God gives to us through Moses and through the prophets and in the Bible, but the light of God's truth shines through creation, as Paul tells us in the 1st chapter of Romans, that God's revelation comes not only in the Bible, but also through nature, where the heavens declare the glory of God and the firmament shows forth his handiwork. And he says that, and of course Justin Martyr goes on to say that some people, even unbelievers, get some glimpse of reality. That's why people who are unbelievers can be effective physicians, mathematicians, biologists, or whatever, because they work with the light of nature, and the light of nature can reveal certain truth. And so we can step back and be impressed by the insights of Plato, impressed by the insights of Cicero, impressed by the insights of Aristotle. And Justin Martyr was saying that where they get their knowledge, any knowledge that you find in Plato that's valuable, comes ultimately from the supreme source of light, who is Christ. Christ is the one who lights everyone who comes into the world. In other words, apart from the light of the grace of God that is given to the world through Christ, there would be nothing but ignorance, nothing but darkness, but that even those who are not Christians participate in some of the flow of the benefits that comes from the light that has come into the world. Even when we reject that light, we still participate in the benefits of that light. I also think it's important to realize that when we go back to the account of creation, in the very first page of sacred scripture, we are told that in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. And then we read, the earth was without form and empty or void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. So that the pre-structured universe of which God describes in the very first chapter of the Bible is, before his work of creation begins, all we have is formlessness or chaos. All we have is emptiness and darkness. And you think of those three metaphors, formlessness, emptiness, and darkness. They are all negative, ominous sounding words in our vocabulary. But the very first act of creation is what? The Spirit hovers on the face of the deep, and God says, "Let there be light." And instantly, the light comes on. So that the very first act of God in creation is to bring light to a universe that is filled with darkness apart from it. And he himself is described, as I said, in terms of light. That's the beginning of the biblical revelation. When we go to the very end of the biblical revelation in the New Testament to the Apocalypse, and we read in the last chapters of the book of Revelation the vivid description that John gives us while he's in exile on the island of Patmos, and he has this vision inside heaven, and he sees the new heavens, the new earth, the new Jerusalem descending down from heaven, and he describes the interior of the holy city. And he says, there's no light there, no sun. Why? Because the glory of God and the Son of God light the heavenly places. There's no night. Because the presence of God radiates this light constantly. And that's what the Bible describes as the glory of God. The refulgence of his blazing purity and brightness comes to us in light. And so all of this is contained in Jesus' claim here when he says, I am the light of the world, and if you follow me, he who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but they will have the very light of life. Isn't it interesting that in our popular vocabulary, when somebody becomes converted, we use the expression, they've seen the light? Because before they were blinded to the things of God. Religion seemed unnecessary, irrational, fanatical, and all the rest, insignificant. And all of a sudden, when your eyes are opened and you see the full orb sweetness of the radiance of Christ, everything changes. Behold, the old has passed away and all has become new, because now you see what you never saw before. See, the other place where Jesus calls himself the light of the world is in the context when he heals the man who's born blind. Because that man opens his eyes and sees for the first time. And perhaps the first thing he sees is the very light of the world who gave him his sight in the first place. Well, when Jesus makes